thank you, Romania 2030, for the invitation. I think it's really an inspiring meeting. And actually, I was quite surprised that we only now, in the early afternoon, come to the point where we discuss about the Ukrainian war, which was not a topic up to now, even though it certainly is on all our minds. Since the question is how to address the East-West divide, I will answer your question right away, but I will not talk about the economy. That is what plenty of people have done here, but I would like to go a little bit into foreign and security policy, because there has also been, in my perception, a divide between the old Western members of the European Union and the newly affiliated countries in 2004. So that would be my take of the divide between East and West, plus also the so-called countries in between, which might be no longer in between if Russia loses the war, which is Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova, and to a certain extent Belarus, which is certainly in the most difficult situation of all of this. Your question concerning the global south, I can only confirm what you say. The take of what happens in the war is quite different in the global south from what we may have here. At the end of the day, in a slightly vulgar way, the global south has experienced very often plenty crisis, conflict, war, and the West didn't bother so much. And now what they feel is that Ukraine is our war. It's a European problem. But obviously it's not a European problem alone, because the war showed that there is no war or military conflict in our days where big power is involved that does not have global repercussions. So the global repercussions of this war over Ukraine are in food supply, are in industrial supply chains. I mean, we have plenty of global effects, and the global south suffers from the war. So basically, I would say their interest is that the war stops. Yeah? And when we from the West come and argue and say it's also our values which are defended, that are defended in Ukraine, they might even agree, but then they say, so what was in Iraq and Syria with the intervention of the Americans without a mandate from the UN? Yeah? So they have a slightly, I would say, not to exaggerate, but they have a fairly different view on this. But let me come to my main point, which is foreign policy and the divide between East and Western Europe. I think Western European and Western, in general, American, Eastern policy has been quite successful until 1989. We all know the result. The bloc conflict ended, and there was a long wave of new countries came into place from the Soviet Union, and a wave of democratizations took place in many of the Central and Eastern European countries. So I would say until '89, a very successful Eastern policy through the West. Since '89, this has changed. I mean, who knows better than you in Romania or in the other new member countries of the EU what happened here in the 1990s? It was a very, very dynamic decade where many things were negotiated in all the countries, and the outcome was quite different. I mean, one group of countries joined the European Union in 2004, but the big problem with Russia we have today started by then. Because Putin, in my perception, could only come to power because Yeltsin left in a chaos. The Russian state didn't have the grip on anything any longer. Not on the money of their governors, not on their population, not on the army, on nothing. So that was a reaction. And then I would say the European Eastern policy that started in the early 2000s when Putin took power, that was much less successful, or maybe even unsuccessful in the end, because the end result of this policy is the war we are facing now. And I think the problem here was that the Eastern policy made by the European Union continued to be dominantly influenced by the Western European countries, and the new member states were not sufficiently taken serious in this time, and they were not listened to, and all their experience, historical and political experience in dealing with Russia, was not to be found in the European Union's foreign policy towards Russia since 2010. And then we all know the story. Yeah? It started with the Chechen War, with Georgia, with Crimea, with the war in Donbass, and eventually with the 24th of February of 2022. So we can certainly say that European Eastern policy needs to be totally reformulated. And this time, obviously, this can only happen together with the new member states in Central and Eastern Europe, who have their experiences and who must have an equal say in the formulation. So that is one of my main points. What is changing, I mean, this is a process where we are on a speculative basis because the war is going on. So if Russia does not win the war, however this looks like, we will have a totally different configuration geographically in Europe. Because then the countries in between, if they are affiliated, if they join the European Union in a longer process, they will be the border states. No longer Poland, no longer the Baltic countries, no longer you. So this is to be seen, what that means. But I think what is extremely important here is that there needs to be a process, a joint process of reformulation of Eastern policy towards the countries like Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and Belarus to a certain extent, in a direction of having them in the European Union eventually. Then the member states in the Balkans who apply for membership should be taken in fairly soon. And then I think we also have to look beyond the war, because Russia will not disappear from the map. There will be a Russia after the war. So we might have to anticipate how a relationship with this Russia can be.